Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Hanson. We'll be checking out time travel places, mysterious things that has happened. My brother Roger will read to you.
This is the Chrono Files 10 time traveler time traveler warnings that left the internet unsettled. Pop culture is obsessed with time travel, while physics treats retro causality as highly improbable. The internet is filled with eerie accounts of individuals who allegedly arrived from the future. Many of these accounts are dismissed as urban legends, hoaxes, or optical illusions. However, certain time travelers left behind specific warnings, predictions, or anomalies that believers claim eventually came true.
I've heard of one, the one Mona Lisa.
Now you're referring to Da Vinci.
Well, he was supposed to went into a cave, slept, or gone for 2 years within the cave or wherever, but then came back and he had wide varieties of inventions, ideals, and all that. That only way I'm guessing that he could know anything about it is some way or another he went into the future. He came up with a whole different the mirror concept, but he wrote and he drew pictures of what he recognized and seen and how they would work. And a lot of the art, the pictures of that he drew today, they look identical to that. It's possible. Who's to say? There's wide varieties of pictures that has caught things off time, the things that shouldn't have been in a certain time frame. Like, well, I'm thinking of this one place. Scientists went there, but they do not know how it was created or built. They are saying that like someone came from the future to this place. It creates energy, high voltage energy underground. But I'm thinking that someone from the future went there because it's just way too high tech and it just seems awful odd. They always say too that time travel, you have to be a certain age group. A certain age group would be more likely to go into time through the time barrier, where it wouldn't mess with their mind. And if they're the only ones that can survive the process, it doesn't do certain things to the human mind as they would as an adult. A person would be taken from one specific time to another time and then back at the same time, like a loop. Whatever you've done through the time, wouldn't that change the process of what you had done whenever it took you until when you came back? You go back to the same age as you were when you went in. Fabrics at different time period is different, and skeletons of old people, they had certain diseases the same as what we got today in the skeleton, in the DNA, in bone marrow. You always hear that people came from England to the U.S. and the U.S. was like a virgin area, didn't have no diseases. Well, they might have, but what we had when we came over from England, to hear how much of the Indian population we wiped out just by a single virus that we had. You would think that if you go to hop into the future for what you have had, would that go with you take a chance of infecting the future with whatever you have or make it worse? You're combining whatever is in that time with what you got to make it into a mutation of a new thing. During World War II, a fighter was flying went into an area, and at the same time, he seen a 1985 airplane flying by at the same time as he was flying, and vice versa. The pilot from 1985 saw a World War II airplane flying by at the same time, passing each other. What is the possibility of that could actually happen? Well, when people disappears, who knows what happened then? With airplanes and even boats, the Bermuda Triangle, people going into the future, like in Egypt, they got this one spot, the door. People would go from one spot to the other or from one time to another. It makes you curious. What is like the energy from it? And they say too that if you go into time, you cannot do one certain thing ever, because you do, drastic things will happen. You cannot meet your soul in the future. You would probably destroy yourself. You would not exist from the time you were born. If a person is from the future, you look and stop and think what's different between what you got and what they got. The texture of the clothes, how they hold themselves. If they look too healthy, if they're from the future, they probably already came through the thing of different varieties of sickness that you haven't came across yet. Newer laws could be made up during that time, and technology as well. I wonder what all different things that they have found, as they showed on in Egypt. The writing, they have seen like ships, like flying saucers and an aircraft, some kind of aircraft. If they went back into time, and they're talking about the bell. They found a bell. There's supposed to be two bells, and one was made by the Nazis. I can't think of the Nazi's name, but he was in control of a lot of stuff there. He came up missing during that time when everybody was being picked up and took. They had a chance to go to the U.S. to be part of Paperclip, but he disappeared. They're thinking that he went through time. I always thought that like cameras, they get better after so many years. I'm just guessing that the picture frame of pigments of the picture can tell you too during that time what year, how small or the size of that camera was at that time, what size of the pigment of the picture is. Like if it was made in 1860 with like a flash, or if the picture was ever made at any point in time in the future. I forget that blood type, but it's a real rare blood type it is. We're not saying that that came from it could be from a future into the past. A person that's hiding out, how things progress in timeline and all that. The ability of someone from another time, without being too, what you call, as long as they don't change a whole lot, affecting just what you call it, just by being there. Do they change it or not? And does it change anything, of the person, or how will it change things? In what way could they alter things? Like if a person is a lawyer, a judge, law enforcement, something that he's thinking about doing, and someone pops up and says, "I wouldn't do that," and by saying something, one word, would that affect something drastically? What weird things would you see, like in pictures? How would you recognize someone from time travel? Someone from the future or the past. The weird things that you would seem odd to you. If you had five people standing in front of you, and one person is a very unique person just by the way their appearance, their build, and their like their clothing and their age. If someone took you from right now and they hold you for like 10 to 20 years, into the future, however old you are, in the condition that you are, can you say that you'd be the same age as when they put you back at the same time as they took you? One would cancel out the other. What I'm saying is,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
always say
I
that
think I see what you're saying. If you were to time travel, you would have to be wrapped in a shell somehow that will protect you from aging as you travel through time.
if you do enough of time travel, in what way will it affect you? Radiation or however, how would
Yeah,
it affect the human body and the mind in the process?
yeah, yeah.
And like,
Imagine what would that be like traveling through time,
it's like
right?
something
I
like
mean, what kind of speed would you be traveling at in order to go faster
well,
than time?
oh, that is a good question. I guess it's as fast as speed of light, the way I understand it. And I brought this up about, okay, you as a person, okay, if you time travel with all the things that you got sick from, okay, the
Hmm.
person, when you go into a future, if someone from the future talking to you, everything that that person has already got sick from mixes with what you got sick from could turn into a mutation.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Because if you recall, like here in the U.S., when the Indians and
Yeah,
we came over
I
from
pulled up what you were talking about when it comes to two objects occupying the same thing. That actually is it's a classic physics. It's microscopic objects cannot occupy the same space because of electromagnetic repulsion. That's also in quantum at the quantum level. It's that's where that came from. You hear a lot of people say that, but that's not necessarily fact. You know what I mean? Like there's no there's no proof saying that if two people came into contact with one another, it will cause something.
oh no no to you as going into
You
the
That's
mean
what I'm
this
saying.
oh okay
the same people,
Right.
yeah
Like that's
same
not
people at
actually
two
a
different times?
fact, is what I'm.
Uh, uh, okay, that only happens if you travel to the past.
no or to the future either.
If you
If
travel to the
someone from the
future, there won't
future,
be a you in the future because you
well no what
divert
I'm
from the timeline.
well what I'm referring to is if a person, if you from, let's say, we can't get to the future but the future can come to you into the past.
Okay, so somebody from the future traveling back to meet
Yeah,
you,
you
like you in the future traveling back to meet you.
yeah
Yeah,
and
just
if they
like you
come to
traveling
you
back in time. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah
same
this
problem.
is it's the same thing. It's basically it's the Fermi's effect is what it is. Is it
Hmm.
they talk about that, and it is from the past, Robert. It's
oh okay yeah
now
but we're the
because
past.
technically they're saying that it's almost impossible to travel to the future because it hasn't been created yet. Like that's actually more fiction or science fiction than it is science, to be honest. Like they're actually and a lot of the stuff. I apologize about the topics too. I didn't realize that you were just wanting to talk about time travel because I went in and I started pulling up the articles that you posted, and I thought you were wanting to do the top 10 time traveling thing. So
Well, yeah, I want to get a little to where it's got a
it's
little
fine.
Uh,
library.
I'm just saying I apologize about that.
Yeah,
Now
and
also another thing I wanted to point out too, the thing that you were talking about where a person goes to the future or actually gets abducted and then they have to live an entire life and go back to the time when they were abducted. That's actually from people who believe in the secret space program. They also are into the super cyborgs and stuff like that. So that's what they're talking about. Just so people who are on there realize, because me and you've talked about that before, and I just wanted to put that out there so that everybody knows what you're talking about with that. Especially Tan. I bet you Tan's probably wondering what the hell's going on right now.
Yeah, this is cool. I'm just rolling with it.
Since they, like I was saying, that the abilities of what they had, it makes you wonder who constructed it to such an extent that from no machinery, no nuclear rods, but it generates large amounts of energy in the ground. And they're saying that this process was from a long time ago, from the past.
Now, exactly what place are you talking about? Like, cause I mean, it's supposed to have been like supposed to be an ancient place that they found. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, it was in our time, but it was created for such a long period of time that they have said that there's no machine, there's no nuclear rods, but it generates large amounts of energy, and it's actually in the ground, but it's been there for a long time. They
That's
don't
what.
quite.
Well, what
It's like a nuclear power plant.
what is it exactly? Like you've I don't.
Well, well, they said where it was at, somewhere overseas, but that's the thing. But it's quite different. It's all in the ground, and they came across. I forget how they came across it, but they did. But it has a large amount of high energy to it, and they do not know how it produces it, or why, or how to shut it down.
I'll do a search, but I don't
I know.
I don't think it's a geothermal energy. It relies on Earth's natural underground heat, which has been continuously generated since the planet's formed billions of years ago. And that's what it comes up with, and powers everything from neighborhood heating to commercial electricity. Now, the source, the Earth's core, which is as hot as the surface of the sun, generates heat through a combination of planetary formation and the slow natural decay of radioactive materials deep underground.
Okay.
So geothermal power plants use wells to bring naturally occurring underground hot water and steam to the surface. This steam drives turbines that generate constant baseline electricity 24/7 without relying on the sun or wind. Emerging tech is the next generation approaches like enhanced geothermal systems, EGS, and super hot rock drilling are expanding across to this endless underground power. As a resident of, oh, that's mine. So, but that's what the search engines come up with: geothermal energy. So that's what you're talking about right there. I'm guessing.
Yeah, it sounds just like that because they're like the hot, lot of hot heat, and they didn't know how.
Okay, that's the closest I could come to it. So this is a power source from a long time ago, and the beginning of the planet. So that's how they're doing it now. Are they? You said they're doing it now?
Well, no, they were investigating the how what's the function of it, but they didn't know how or what trigger what makes it active.
Okay, so this This sounds like something you're going to have to do some more research with because I doubt this has anything to do with time travel.
The 10 things I was curious about is when a person goes to the time thing, do they have like some kind of device or something for information?
The stuff that you actually pointed out that was I thought was going to be the topic was about in 2000, for example, this guy John Titor claimed to be a military time traveler from the year 2036.
For each parallel, where when times come, things change, and even in different types of timelines, each thing changes. The way it was from one to the other alters itself. Like different rules, different laws, different medicines, what works and what don't. You would lose your past if people is able to go and change things.
Now, I did run you a search on that one, and it came up with some pretty interesting stuff for you. Now, it says, like, in physics and science fiction, time travel affects parallel universes in one of two ways. Either it creates them or requires them to exist to avoid logic paradoxes. So you have too many, the many world interpretation, which is branching timelines. Then you have the multiverse buffer that's navigating existing realities. And then you have timeline convergence, the rubber band effect. So you got those options going on there. So when you're talking about a multiverse, where what you do now, if you go back in time, it could cause and it could affect it. That's what they're talking about.
Mm.
So that's actually pretty interesting. And it, there's also something that they've been talking about called the Gin particle, which is another interesting topic that you could get into. You know, the Gin particle is a theoretical term used in physics and philosophy to describe an object or a piece of information or a particle trapped in a closed time loop that has no clear origin or creator. It exists solely because it was brought from the future into the past, creating a cycle where it's never actually made or destroyed.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And that was coined in 1992. It's a paper by a physicist named Andrei Losov, and there's actually two of them, Igor Nivikov. Now, they named it after the jinn, which is the genies in Islamic folklore, because these entities are described as appearing out of nowhere and vanishing without leaving a trace.
Yeah, the gin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's another interesting thing right there that they're talking about too. It refers to a physical item that traveled back in time, it ages normally, and is eventually sent back in time again. You know what I'm saying?
What, like a slingshot, back and forth.
Yeah.
Or
And that would go into what you were talking about before whenever I mentioned the thing about the super soldiers and the cyborg people who believe that they were turned into cyborgs and stuff like that. That's a lot of the ufology cults that believe in that.
hmm.
Yeah. Now, and like, there's a good example somewhere in time. There's one. It's an elderly woman who hands a young woman a pocket watch, and um, then or a young guy, he hands him a pocket watch, and later travels back in time to like 1912 and gives that same watch to her when she was younger. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So it could be a watch, it could be a person, it could be anything.
Yeah, and they say too that a person at younger age can handle the time, going through the time would be a lot better than an adult. Something about the adult's mind supposedly can't handle too many time travel. A young mind can handle quite farther more of it.
Well, that right there actually, for me, I believe that it actually violates the second law of thermodynamics because, like, uh, an object, even if it does travel through time, it should age, it should rust, and it should also accumulate entropy till it finally decays into dust. You know what I mean? That's the laws of
Well,
thermodynamics.
they say time travel, like if you was, uh, I don't know, they say that if you was ever got caught, best way I could put it, like a time bubble where the time never ends, you're like stuck, you're there. You don't age and you don't go old, you don't die, but you're just living at a specific time.
Well, think about like Back to the Future. This is another form of the gin, the second kind for it basically. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The information is self-causing. It's its own origin. And Back to the Future would be the perfect one because like Marty he travels back to 1955 and in the show he plays Johnny Be Good at a high school dance, right? So the character in it, Marvin Berry, he calls his cousin Chuck Berry up and plays the music over the phone. Well, Chuck Berry then writes the song. Okay, so the question is, who actually composed the music? Chuck Berry,
Mm,
um,
yeah.
or Marty? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or did Marty write it? Because Marty actually got it from Chuck Berry.
Yeah. And that right there tells you that what happened is supposed to have happened, because if not, the time would change, or the outlook would, you know. I mean, you would change. They always say you take something and you alter the timeline, it changes, and
Well, it's something that's interesting to think about, you know. Well, I do find the gin particles is something interesting. Maybe not in the material part, you know, the physical objects,
hmm
but like when it comes to ideas and information, like music, like with that one, that actually is an interesting concept, you know, because the gin particles they allow they're they're allowed to exist because the timeline is fixed and unchangeable. That would be with the past, you know.
yeah. Well, and it's like the time thing too is like on Star Trek when Captain Kirk and them went back in time to get the well to save the future, right?
Uh-huh.
And they rocket to the sun, and they had to build, and the speed had to be increased where they can, when they do the slingshot effect, where they go back in time at that speed.
Well, the area of Star Trek where that would actually fit more is if you remember with
The sun.
no, the last one with Picard in it, where he actually was caught in that loop with what's his face, the British guy. You remember that where he was in that time loop and he couldn't get out of it. Picard was.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, okay. It's just the line, uh, the line where that guy killed that, blew up the sun, and where,
Yes,
okay, yeah,
that would be more of what we're talking about here.
Okay.
You would land in a newly created universe B.
Yeah, where you don't never die and you never get old.
Right. Whereas you would have a universe A and then a universe B, and the loop is
Whatever you make of it.
yeah. So I mean that's actually kind of interesting. That's something that I've been actually kind of going into and checking out too myself. So pretty good.
Well, military guy in the year 2030, what specific things is in his time that
Well, he warned that the United States would split into five distinct factions, followed by a period of intense internal conflict and election-related friction. While his specific timeline of a 2004 civil war failed, modern analysts frequently revisit his post. Now, believers argue his description of extreme political polarization, cultural division, and distrust in the federal institution accurately mirror the modern geopolitical landscape. So you have that going on right there. He was wrong about the date, but like when it comes to what's going on today, with politics and things like that, that kind of gets a lot of people today thinking about that. So that's something that was in 2000, and he said that there was going to be a civil war in 2004, which wasn't true. But then when they look at a lot of the things that are taking place now, they're saying maybe he was off on the date. So that was the first one, and they called that the internal fractured warning. And then there was the South Fork Bridge hipster, and that's a visual warning, which was in 1941. A genuine photograph from 1941 documented the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in British Columbia, Canada, and it features an unexpected individual. Now, standing among men in traditional 1940 suits and fedoras is a young man wearing modern logo printed sportswear, advanced sunglasses, and holding a compact camera. Believers view this as a deliberate visual warning of a coming shift towards casual consumer culture and miniaturized technology. Skeptics note that while rare, all items he wore were technically available in 1941. After that, we come to Andrew Carlson's market prediction anomaly in 2003, where in 2003 the FBI reportedly detained a man named Andrew Carlson after he turned an initial $800 investment into over $350 million in just 2 weeks via high-risk stock trades. Now, during the interrogation, Carlson reportedly claimed he was from the year 2256, and he warned authorities that the global financial market was highly volatile, but entirely predictable if one possessed future historical data. Carlson mysteriously skipped his bail hearing and disappeared completely. And the story remains a foundational internet legend regarding the vulnerability of modern economic infrastructure. And then the fourth one is Sergei Ponomarenko's Cityscape Records, which was in 2006. where in 2006 a confused young man in mid 20th century clothing wandered the streets of Kiev, Ukraine, carrying a vintage camera and an identity card used by the Soviet Union in the 1950s. Ponomarenko claimed he took a photo of an unidentified flying object in 1958 and instantly woke up decades in the future. He warned that the world would look radically different, unrecognizable, and heavily monitored. And experts developed his vintage film revealing pristine 1950 photos of Kiev alongside an impossible photograph of a futuristic cityscape that he claimed was taken during a brief accidental skip to the year 2050. And then, of course, you have the Charlie Chaplin Premier cell phone, which occurred in 1928, supposedly. Now, that's behind the scene footage from the 1928 premiere of Charlie Chaplin's film The Circus, which revealed a woman walking past the camera holding a small object to her ear. And the woman appears to be actively speaking into a compact, rectangular handheld device, a behavior entirely alien to the 1920s. Now, theorists cite that this is proof of early testing for mobile communication networks, or a warning of a future reliant on handheld devices. Now, historians counter that she was likely using a newly invented bulky carbon amplifier hearing aid. And this next one is interesting. It's the 1938 DuPont factory communication device, which is from 1938. Archival film footage from 1938 shows a group of young women leaving a DuPont industrial factory in Massachusetts. One woman in the center of the frame laughs and speaks directly into a small wireless device held flush against her cheek, mirroring modern smartphone usage. Decades later, a user claimed the woman was her grandmother, and she verified that DuPont was actively testing experimental short-range wireless radio telephones at that exact facility, validating the technology's early existence. So that was kind of interesting. So after that, you have the 1917 Cape Scott Hipster, which is in 1917, and the historical photograph. It was a historical photograph taken at Cape Scott in British Columbia which shows a group of people sitting on a hill, but one individual disrupts the timeline. Now, while everyone else is wearing heavy coats, bowler hats, and formal dresses, this young man sits in an oversized t-shirt and shorts, sporting a modern, messy hairstyle. He looks so out of place that the people sitting next to him appear to be staring at him in confusion. So the image serves basically as an eerie warning of how radically social norms in attire would shift over the next century, according to what's being said there. Now, on the eighth one, it's Paul Helton's photographic timeline. That's 1857 to modern. And that's an internet user known as Von Helton shared a series of historical photographs spanning from 1857 through the world wars into the 21st century. Now, the photographs depict the exact same man without a single sign of aging across more than 150 years. Von Helton used these images to warn that elite figures possess temporal manipulation technology. Now, while most analysts attribute the photos to doppelgangers, facial structure matches, and photographic coincidences, the eerie precision of the physical similarities continue to fuel online debate. Now, the ninth one is the 1943 Cape Cod Beach mobile device, which was in 1943. A photograph taken on a crowded beach in Cape Cod, Massachusetts in 1943 shows hundreds of sunbathers, but the center of the image focuses on a single man. The man dressed in a brown suit stands completely still while hunched over a small object in his hands, using his thumbs in a manner identical to texting messages. Now, believers argue it is a stark warning regarding humanity's future obsession with personal screens. Skeptics suggest he was simply rolling a cigarette or winding a pocket watch. And the final one is the air raid warden paradox in 1941. Now, the footage from a 1941 documentary about the London Blitz briefly captured an air raid warden assisting citizens into a bomb shelter. The warden appears to be making a subtle, distinct hand gesture, tapping his wrist as if pointing to a digital smartwatch to check the time long before digital displays existed. This anomaly is frequently cited by enthusiasts as a classic slip where a traveler instinctively checks a piece of future technology that wasn't supposed to be there, warning of our eventual total reliance on wearable tech. And that's the 10 of those chronophiles, time travelers warning that left the internet unsettled.
When was it that Russia sent Sputnik out? What year was that?
When did Sputnik launch?
Yeah, it was launched.
I believe Sputnik, October the 4th, 1957.
They located something stellar orbit on Earth. It was a black device, and it was before Sputnik was even sent out. They located it. It was on radar, long-range radar. That this was a device they do not know, and it's been there forever. And we're not saying that that device, with all the abilities that the time travel thing through the thing could have been part of it. Because you got, for a phone to work, you got to have something there, even in the past. It would be like a dead thing that, has to have a two-way, you would think, two-way communications. Everyone talked about the Dark Knight, but something was there before the Dark Knight came up, even.
Okay, so I just did that, and it said the most famous alleged device detected before the launch of Sputnik is the legendary object known in popular culture and conspiracy circles as the Black Knight satellite. Now, that is what it says. Now, the Black Knight is actually a black object, so that most likely is what you're talking about there. According to lore, this was a mysterious dark object trapped in a polar orbit around Earth years before humans possessed the technology to launch anything into space.
Yeah.
So,
And they were just like how Sputnik now, well, the not Sputnik, the Dark Knight moving around now, you know.
yeah. Now, in 1954, newspaper reports, there was claims 3 years before Sputnik retired. Retired U.S. Marine Corps Major Donald Kehoe claimed that the U.S. Air Force had detected 2 artificial satellites orbiting the Earth. At the time, neither the U.S. nor the Soviet Union had the rocket power to achieve orbit. So that happened there, and then there was a long-delayed one called long-delayed echoes, which was in the 1920s, where in 1927 and 1928 researchers and amateur radio operators in Norway detected strange radio echoes that bounced back seconds after being transmitted. Decades later, science fiction enthusiasts speculated these signals were being actively repeated by an ancient alien probe orbiting Earth. So that's kind of cool. So you get a lot of good stuff when it comes out of this stuff. It's pretty enjoyable.
Yeah.
Dan decided to go silent on us, I think.
Yeah.
He was in his bedrobe, so.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. I guess he just knew that he was listening.
Well, he knows that this is the weird stuff. He's not really much into the weird stuff. Are you, Dan?
The thing that you read about some people in the 1940s and the 30s using something that looked like a cell phone. That was interesting.
Yeah, that actually, I didn't know anything about that.
But you also said that they could be testing experimental mobile or wireless communication device at that time.
Yeah,
That
but
doesn't say anything about them being potential time travelers, right?
Well, that was the DuPont thing. That's what came out afterwards. Like they had a list of all 10 of them where they mentioned that with what's his face? Oh God, I cannot. Not Karl Marx, but the Marx Brothers behind the scenes thing with the mysterious device. But then they go into the one with DuPont. Well, that kind of explains both of them. You know what I mean? In my opinion, maybe that's what they were actually freaking using, was that experimental device that DuPont was using. So, I mean, I guess there is evidence that that kind of technology was being researched back then. You
Right.
know? So, I mean, that is kind of interesting. So,
well, yeah, but as well too, what like that Dark Knight, if it's the same one that from 19, well before this Sputnik came into the picture, it could have been a relayer of all the what they were showing on there about the devices that people were talking or pictures and stuff like that, or like a two-way communications in time. like two-way computers.
Well, I mean the whole
How in time? Interesting.
yeah.
So you mean like the device will communicate
Yeah,
through time?
yeah. Like it since that time, the device was already in the past, and it's been there sitting there through the years. And if you're going back in the time, that device is always going to be there in that specific time. The
Yeah,
dark
but if
night.
that device at that time will communicate with the signals of that time,
Well, if
unless
you
you
have
have
a
some quantum device that can communicate through time, that's
well, no,
not a
no.
conventional device.
If you're in time, you're going back into a specific timeline, like 1920s, where the Dark Knight was there before that, but it can pick up that signal. You'd be able to talk back and forth to the Dark Knight device by with that cell phone, and take pictures as well or whatever. But the device would have a two-way thing for it helps with information, data collection, and all that about that specific time where you know what not to do and what to do.
No, if such a device exists, it'll be a very cool device. But that's not it wouldn't be a regular mobile
Well, no,
So
cell
hold on.
phone.
You're basically telling me that you would use the Dark Knight as a time traveling antenna to communicate back and
Yeah,
forth.
yeah. That's what it sounds like to me too.
well, it would be a time device. It would be because it
Well,
would
I
have
mean,
in both ways.
the thing that I mean, even if it was just for like if you had technology that was unavailable during that time and you were trying to use it, then maybe you could use freaking the Black Knight as an antenna to bounce it off of it, or even maybe it would pick up the frequency of it and it would retain it later on, so that like somebody in the 1980s would hear this echo of technology that was being used back in the 1920s. You know what I'm saying? Like if a time traveler traveled back to the 1920s and tried to use a device that was beyond that technology, it could still be freaking there from before. But even with the Black Knight, it's still speculative. People still argue if that actually exists.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just kind of being hypothetical there. It is a pretty cool thought. I'm amazed you thought of that. That's pretty good. I think we should make a sci-fi movie. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah.
And well, it's
The
like what they
Hanson
found
brothers,
in New
just like the
Mexico.
Wachowski brother create the Matrix, you know. You will you will create the what would you call it?
We'll call it Dark Knight. The Dark
The
Knight.
Dark Knight of DNA. The dark DNA.
Well, the way this episode is going, I think you should leave naming to me because like you haven't figured out what you want to name your show. You just
Yeah, I know.
so. Oh, there's V. He's back.
I found some free time to be able to join the show. What are you guys doing?
We're talking about time
Talking
travel.
time travel.
Do we have it? Ooh, what a subject! I
Uh,
I had not probably missed out on the whole scientific basis behind your guys' discussion.
No, there was absolutely no scientific basis whatsoever.
Don't yell at me, please.
Well, I did bring up a thing about okay, they got a picture thing on there, but I brought it up about okay, will you take year by like every 5 or 10 years the camera, and what way does it change? what you call the pigment. I'm saying that right, ain't I? The color, the little square pixels. Okay, you take the pixels of that picture and you stop and think, what year was this picture made from, and the size of back then, what size of the pixels was back then in like 1920s.
You're talking about like what paintings?
No, the picture. When you take a picture,
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
okay, and then you take the picture and you think of, okay, how many pixels were in this picture at 1920, and the color, the type of color it is. Okay, the
I can
range
tell
of the
you.
camera, how
I,
far the camera can take that picture at 1920, and how good the pixels would, the thing. How many pixels would it take for the distance?
that's a very interesting concept because when I was in tech ed, I
Uh-huh.
was okay. So we had a photo day, which was like we basically had to make a camera out of a shoebox and other materials. I was the only person in the class to get an A, the only person in the class to get a clear picture. I mean, clear.
Yeah,
And the negatives were just as beautiful and everything. And I never actually thought of that in terms of pixels because that's
yeah,
digital. I mean, this is analog technology you're talking about right now in the
yeah.
1920s, right?
Hmm. Back then, they didn't have digital,
Right. I mean, the
and
concept of digital was
yeah,
it's not it didn't exist.
yeah, I
Whether
know.
whether it happened or not. I mean, because obviously you have pigmentation on a easel or a photograph. So, you have a backdrop for something where the image is there and it has to be pixelated, right?
Yeah,
Even though it may be analog or not.
and you would think too, and okay, and for each, like I guess 5 or 10 years, in what way does the pixel, the lookout, the colors, how it changes through the years? Okay, how it
You're talking about an aging photo.
well, no. I'm saying for the pixel, the size of the pickle, the things. What size are they through the years since the upgrade of the camera? How do they lay out to through the years? Do they get
Mm.
smaller, thinner? I mean, small, but still
Hmm.
have a nice picture to it, more clearer. You know.
Well, I think you'd have to talk to somebody in that field.
Well, yeah, but that's my point. Through the
Yeah.
years of upgrading of the camera, in what way does less pixels,
Pixel. Yes.
less pic, less of them, and then does the picture get more qualified or however, from it? Because
So you're talking about the accuracy in
yeah,
the imagery?
yeah, both all three. Through when it comes to like every 10 years, look at the performance of what the picture is, how it progress, how it the layout and the progression of it, how it
Well,
changes.
the thing about light, and if you're dealing with light and photons, that was the beauty of photography, was how accurate it was. You can get a mirror image, even with the level of technology back in the 1920s, 1930s, is that
Yeah,
you still get today.
yeah, but here's
And
the thing.
light is the technology. We just create tools to implement it.
Yeah, but when we call them cameras that you stick the gunpowder up on top and you do a big old flash thing
Yeah,
and you take a picture.
and you have to
No,
sit there for a while. Yeah.
yeah, you just gotta hope you put enough the right amount in. But yeah,
I love your laugh. It's just like Roger.